Welcome back to our deep dive. We're picking up right where we left off, exploring those 30 dark psychology tricks. It's pretty wild how many of these sneaky tactics are out there.
It really is. And the thing is, we all use them to some extent, whether we realize it or not. It's just part of human nature.
So true.
hmm
But knowing about them, that's the key, right? It's like having a superpower, being able to see through the manipulation and stuff.
Exactly. Awareness is key. Once you understand these tricks, you're less likely to fall for them.
Okay, so let's jump back in. What's the next trick on our list?
This one's called the power of touch. Yeah, you heard that right, touch.
Okay, I'm listening.
So it turns out even a light, appropriate touch can influence someone.
Really? Like how?
Well, think about it. Have you ever noticed that if someone, say, touches your arm while they're talking to you, it makes you feel more connected to them?
Actually, yeah, now that you mention it, it's like a subtle way of building trust.
Exactly. A light touch can trigger the release of oxytocin, the cuddle hormone.
Oh yeah, I heard of that.
It creates a sense of bonding and connection, so suddenly you're more receptive to their message.
Wow, that's pretty sneaky. But it makes sense, I guess. We're social creatures, after all.
We are. But of course, you got to be careful with touch, right? It has to be appropriate, respectful of boundaries and all that.
Oh, absolutely. A creepy touch is going to have the opposite effect.
For sure. Consent and context are key.
Okay, what's the next trick on the list? I'm ready for more.
This one's called the foot in the mouth technique.
Foot in the mouth. That sounds kind of awkward.
It can be, but in a good way. Sometimes.
Okay, I'm confused. Tell me more.
So the idea here is to admit to a small fault or mistake right up front. Make yourself seem more relatable and human.
So, like, if you trip and spill your coffee all over yourself.
Exactly. Instead of getting flustered, you just laugh it off and say, oops, clumsy me.
So you're basically owning your imperfections.
Exactly. It shows vulnerability, authenticity, and it makes you seem more approachable and trustworthy.
Because everyone makes mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of saying, hey, I'm just like you.
Exactly. It's a disarming tactic, especially in situations where you're trying to build rapport or gain trust.
Okay, I like this one. It seems less dark and more like just being a decent human being.
Right. Sometimes the simplest tricks are the most effective. Okay, ready for the next one?
Hit me.
This one's called the endowment effect. It's the idea that people tend to value things more highly simply because they own them.
So, like, if I have this old coffee mug that's chipped and faded, I might think it's worth more than someone who doesn't own it.
Exactly. Ownership creates an emotional connection.
So it's not just about the object itself, it's about the sentimental value we attach to it.
Precisely. Think about all those things you have that wouldn't fetch much money on eBay but are priceless to you.
Oh, totally. Like my childhood teddy bear, I'd never sell him.
Exactly. And this principle can be used strategically, like in negotiations or sales. If you can make someone feel like they already own something, they're more likely to pay more for it.
That's really interesting. I never would have thought about it that way. Okay, what's next on our list of psychological mind games?
All right, this next one is all about fear.
Fear. Oh, sounds intense.
It can be, but it's also super effective. It's about highlighting potential dangers or threats to create a sense of urgency.
So, like, using fear to motivate people to take action.
Exactly. You see it all the time in advertising. Think about those commercials for home security systems.
Oh yeah, the ones with the creepy music and the guy lurking in the shadows.
Exactly. They're playing on your fear of being robbed to get you to buy their product.
It makes sense. Fear is definitely a strong motivator.
It is. But as with all these tactics, it's important to use it responsibly. We don't want to unnecessarily frighten people, right?
Right. Ethics are key.
Yeah.
So what's the last trick on our list?
All right. Last but not least, we have the good old power of flattery.
Flattery. I thought we were talking about dark psychology, not cheesy pickup lines.
Haha, fair enough. But flattery, when done right, can be incredibly effective. It's about making someone feel good about themselves.
So like complimenting their intelligence or their outfit or something.
Exactly. By boosting their ego, you can make them more receptive to your suggestions. It's all about making them feel special and valued.
It's like that saying, flattery will get you everywhere.
It can, but it's got to be genuine. People can spot fake flattery a mile away.
Right, we don't want to come across as insincere or manipulative. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. Authenticity is key.
Wow, we did it. We made it through all 30 dark psychology tricks. That was a wild ride.
It was. And I think we both learned a lot along the way.
I know I did. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how people tick. But now I'm also a little paranoid that everyone's trying to use these tricks on me.
I get it, but I don't think we need to be too worried. Remember, these tactics aren't inherently bad. It all depends on how they're used.
That's a good point. Like we've been saying all along, it's all about intention.
Exactly. These techniques can be used for good or for evil. It's up to each individual to decide how they want to use this knowledge.
So what can we do to protect ourselves from being manipulated, by people who might not have the best intentions?
Well, awareness is a good first step. Now that you know about these tactics, you're more likely to spot them in action.
Right. It's like having that secret decoder ring we talked about.
Exactly. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is.
Okay, that's reassuring. I'm feeling a little more empowered now.
Hmm.
But I am curious about that Dark Whisper channel where you found this video. Do you think they're sharing this information for good or for evil?
It's hard to say for sure. I think it's important to be cautious with any information we find online, especially when it comes to something as potentially powerful as psychology.
So we should always be questioning our sources and thinking critically about the information we're consuming.
Absolutely. Don't just take things at face value. Do your own research, draw your own conclusions.
Okay, good advice. So, what's the big takeaway here? What should our listeners keep in mind after listening to this deep dive?
I would say the most important thing is to remember that knowledge is power. The more we understand about human behavior and these psychological tactics, the better equipped we are to navigate the world around us. We can choose to use this knowledge ethically, to build better relationships, communicate more effectively, and make more informed decisions.
We're wrapping up our exploration of those 30 dark psychology tricks from that Dark Whisper YouTube video. We've already uncovered 26 of them, and let me tell you, it's been a wild ride.
It has. We've seen how these tactics can be used to influence, persuade, and sometimes even manipulate.
Right. But we've also talked about how they can be used ethically, to improve communication and build stronger relationships.
Exactly. It all comes down to intention and awareness.
Okay, well, I'm ready to tackle the last four. What's next on the list? Hit me with number 27.
All right, this one's called the framing effect.
Framing. Like putting a picture in a frame.
Kinda. It's about how the way information is presented can totally change how we see it.
Okay, I'm listening. Give me an example.
Sure. Imagine you're told about a medical treatment that has a 90% survival rate.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Right. But what if they framed it differently and said it had a 10% mortality rate?
That sounds way worse, even though it's the same thing.
Exactly. Our brains tend to react more strongly to negative framing, even if the information is logically equivalent.
Wow, that's really interesting. It's like our emotions can override our logic just based on how something is presented.
Exactly. The framing effect is a powerful reminder that the way we say things can have a huge impact on how people perceive them.
Okay, so what's trick number 28?
This one is called the authority bias. It's about our tendency to trust authority figures, experts, people in positions of power.
So if someone's wearing a lab coat, we're more likely to believe what they say.
Pretty much. We're conditioned to respect and obey authority from a young age, and that can sometimes make us blindly follow orders or accept information without question.
Right, like that famous Milgram experiment.
Exactly. It's a chilling reminder of how powerful authority can be.
It makes you realize how important it is to think critically and question things, even if they're coming from someone who seems like an expert.
Absolutely. Don't just blindly accept information because someone in a position of authority said it. Do your research, think for yourself, form your own conclusions.
Okay, 2 tricks left. What's next on our list?
This one's called the commitment and consistency bias. It's all about our tendency to stick with our previous decisions, even when they're not working out anymore.
Oh, I know this one. It's like when you keep pouring money into a car that keeps breaking down because you've already invested so much in it.
Exactly. Or staying in a relationship that's clearly not working because you've already put in so much time and effort.
Yeah, we could be pretty stubborn creatures.
We can. We have this deep need to appear consistent in our actions and beliefs, even when it's not in our best interest.
So how do we break free from that?
Well, awareness is a good start. Recognize that this bias exists and that it can lead to some pretty bad decisions. Then try to be more flexible, more willing to change course if something's not working.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, we're down to the final trick on our list. Bring it on. What's the last one?
This one's called the curse of knowledge.
The curse of knowledge.
Mhm.
Okay, that sounds ominous.
It can be. It's about how experts sometimes have trouble explaining things to people who don't know as much.
So like when a doctor uses all this medical jargon that you don't understand,
Exactly. Experts can forget what it's like to not know something. They assume everyone's on the same page, and their explanations end up being too complex or confusing.
Oh, yeah. It's like they're speaking a different language.
Exactly. The curse of knowledge highlights the importance of clear communication, meeting people where they're at and explaining things in a way that makes sense to them.
That's such a good point. We should always strive to communicate in a way that is accessible and engaging, regardless of our audience. Okay, we did it.
Mhm.
We explored all 30 of those dark psychology tricks. It's been an eye-opening journey.
It has. We've learned about the power of names, the importance of touch, the dangers of framing, and so much more.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of human behavior.
Me too. And hopefully our listeners do as well.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? What do we want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the most important thing is to remember that knowledge is power. The more we understand about these psychological tactics, the better equipped we are to navigate the world and make informed decisions.
And to use that knowledge ethically, right?
Absolutely. We can use this knowledge to build better relationships, communicate more effectively, and create a more positive and understanding world.
I love that. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. Thanks for joining me on this journey.
It's been my pleasure. Always happy to explore the fascinating world of psychology.
And to all of you listening out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, your experiences with any of these dark psychology tricks.
So leave us a comment, send us a message. Let's keep the conversation going.
And as always, stay curious, stay informed. We'll see you on our next deep dive.